It is common in Fallout 4 to wonder how to get a lot of XP very easily. But what if you wanted to beat the game while getting the least XP possible? This challenge was attempted once before by a YouTuber called Crisis Gaming. To cut a long story short, he was able to reach the final cutscene at level 14. But I know that level 11 is possible, primarily by choosing a different faction to beat the game with, but also through a variety of other unique methods of avoiding or minimizing XP gain. One final note before we begin. I count the final XP gained as the XP I have when the final cutscene plays. This is because the speedrunning community defines this exact point as when the game is beaten. As such, I will be ignoring the 1545 XP that comes from completing the nuclear option quest. We start only a few minutes before the unthinkable. I make my face, then wait for the Vault-Tec rep. The only part of the run from here to waking up in the Radroach infested Vault 111 is picking the distribution of special stats. Fortunately, this is incredibly easy. I don't need strength, as I won't be carrying that much stuff, and I don't need high melee damage. I don't need perception, as I won't be shooting anyone. Intelligence must be 1 in order to minimize XP gain. Finally, I don't need luck, as I won't be doing critical hits. However, I do need to max out my endurance and agility. Endurance gives me more health, and both endurance and agility give me a better sprinting ability in different complicated ways. With 10 endurance and 10 agility, the rest goes into charisma for better bartering, as well as a lone wanderer perk. Now that I'm out of the freezer, I'll grab my dead wife's wedding ring for later, then run past the roaches to escape. As I do, I'll go over the rules of the run, which is simple. Anything that gives XP is banned, unless I absolutely have to do it to beat the game, like doing main quests, or discovering a couple of essential locations. Some examples of things I can't do are side quests, crafting armor and weapon mods, cooking chems or food, building in settlements, and most importantly, I can't kill anything. I also have to make sure that when I do get XP, I get as little as possible, which goes beyond always having 1 intelligence. In addition, I will not be doing any glitches, such as skipping quests or clipping through walls. I have a little difficulty getting past the roaches without killing them, but I still make it first try. Now that I'm at the room with the Pip-Boy, I can't just grab it and go, as I have to be out of combat to get it. It's a simple matter of getting all the roaches trapped out of the room, and then staying in sneak mode until I'm fully hidden. With the Pip-Boy obtained, leaving the vault is a cakewalk. After looting the immediate surroundings of Vault 111, I immediately run to Sanctuary. This may seem contrary to the challenge, but instead of beating the game with the Institute, I'm going to beat the game with the Minutemen. Overall, choosing the Minutemen results in less quests as well as less quest XP, saving me about 1000 XP over the run. I talk to Codsworth, taking care to avoid the speech check, as that does provide XP. I get him to dispatch the bloatflies, then go to my pre-war house for the special book. There is a bug I could do to put this point in endurance, but as I'm not doing glitches, I just pick charisma for better bartering. Then, I pick up all the loot in Sanctuary, including breaking open the safes with the workshop mode, and picking up the 3 gold bars in the root cellar. I also find a Sea Captain's hat, which gives me +2 endurance for more health and better running. Before I leave, I dispatch the red roaches by leading them to Codsworth. A note on the settlement system: the only action in that system that produces XP is building objects. Scrapping and moving them is free. In addition, I start picking up food for the run here. Despite the limited amount of places I can go, cram is still a reasonably common food item, and the cans of cram I find throughout the run will last me a long time through it. When done with Sanctuary Hills, I go straight to Red Rocket. You may know that visiting Sanctuary Hills is necessary, as Preston goes there after you rescue him, but why Red Rocket? Well, the Minutemen questline has 2 quests that are gated by the number of settlements you own that have 1 or more people in them. To unlock the Attacking Independence quest, you need 4 or more settlements, and to complete the Form Ranks quest and unlock the Defend the Castle quest, you need to have 8 or more settlements. Based on the Minutemen quests, Sanctuary Hills, the Castle, 10 Pines Bluff, and whatever settlement I get in the 1 raiding quest are guaranteed, and I need Spectacle Island for reasons. This leaves 3 settlements to get, and Red Rocket is one of the easiest, as all I have to do is rock up and touch the workshop. After saving at the house just after Red Rocket, I'll first point out that just beyond the house is the trigger for unlocking the Concord map marker. However, I cannot avoid this map marker, as even if I run all the way around the activation zone to the back of the Museum of Freedom, I trigger the Concord location before I reach the museum entrance or the church entrance. Instead, I just run through Concord like normal, picking up ammo to sell later, and getting the Day Tripper and Excel from the Speakeasy, before saving in the house to the north of the museum. While I can't avoid the trigger for Concord, I can avoid the trigger for the Museum of Freedom itself. That trigger exists only right at the front door, and I can circumvent it by entering the church next door, climbing to the roof, jumping across to the crashed vertibird, and then climbing over to the roof of the Museum of Freedom. From here, I could enter the museum, kill the raiders, and continue the quest from there, but I don't yet have a way of killing those raiders without getting XP. Instead, I just do this to get close enough to Preston to trigger the dialogue that ends the quest out of time, which is essential to the Minutemen storyline. This gets me to level 2, where I pick the Aqua Boy perk, which will help massively in avoiding location triggers, as there are very few of them that are in water. Then, I enter the power armor, pick up the minigun, and jump down to the ground, leaving the power armor there. That minigun isn't for a settler or companion. Picking it up gets me 1,305mm ammo, which is worth 1,300 caps total. I sell some stuff to Trashcan Carla, carefully make my way around Drumlin Diner, then save, before going on a long journey to Goodneighbor. My next destination is Goodneighbor. I need to go there much later to run through Kellogg's Brain, so getting that location does not matter. But, for right now, the most important thing I need there is to buy the services on MacCready. Throughout the run, there are certain people who need to be killed for the plot to continue, like Kellogg, the Corsa in Green Tech Genetics, and the Raiders in the Museum of Freedom. If I do that myself, I will get the XP, which I don't want. But if I use a companion like MacCready, I don't get the XP. However, this comes with a large caveat. I cannot gain any XP while I have a companion with me. If you adventure with a companion, you get a 5% bonus to all XP, so I need to make sure to dismiss my companion before completing quests, discovering locations, or doing any other required thing that gives XP. I have no difficulties dodging the on-water location triggers on the way there. Before I enter Goodneighbor, I go out of my way to discover the Old North Church, Boston Common, and Park Street Station, to get them out of the way so that I don't need to manipulate my companion for them. I have also tested these location triggers. I can't avoid the Old North Church trigger from the upper entrance, and there is no way to enter Park Street Station without triggering the Boston Common trigger. I planned to get Green Tech, but I forgot. In Goodneighbor, I ignore Finn and start by visiting Daisy. I already have the money for MacCready, but Daisy sells a Destroy's left leg and chest piece, which gives a 10% boost to movement speed and a 15% reduction in damage from humans respectively. These will be hugely helpful over the whole run, and I buy as many chems from her and Fred, and sell as much as I can to get the most out of the Day Tripper and Excel I used. Then, I pick up MacCready for 250 caps and bring him to Park Street Station. This dungeon where Nick Valentine is trapped is comprised of 2 parts, Park Street Station and Vault 114, and for the most part they happen as normal, apart from MacCready doing all of the fighting for me. I do try a strategy a few times where I can release MacCready from being my companion so that he will automatically return to action if he goes down from losing all his health rather than needing a stim pack, and he also will not consume ammunition in his guns. Unfortunately, I do not get that strategy to work here. MacCready also lockpicks a few doors for me, as I cannot do that myself because of the XP that would be gained. While MacCready works his way through the triggermen, I loot them for ammo to top up his guns. MacCready and I work our way to Nick until the room where Dino is found. MacCready deals with Dino, then I release him from my service. I have entered Vault 114 before finding out about it from Ellie in Diamond City, and before even entering Diamond City at all, which means that the dialogue with Nick will complete the quest Jewel of the Commonwealth automatically, getting me 155 XP and bringing me to level 3 where I get the Lone Wanderer perk. If I had MacCready with me, the 5% bonus will get me about 8 more XP. In addition, I get Lone Wanderer to have better defense and carrying capacity when I don't have a companion with me, which will be as much of the game as I can manage. The other notable part of this area is that this is the first time I was able to fill my bowls with water, as I cannot build sinks or water pumps. As I'm in survival mode, I do need to drink water or I'll build up thirst and end up taking damage. Food is more important, as without it, the hunger I get will reduce my endurance and with it, my health and sprinting ability. The rest of Vault 114 and the encounter with Skinny Malone take place as normal. MacCready shoots and I loot. But once Skinny Malone is sleeping with the fishes, I'll release MacCready again, as I'm about to get 206 XP from completing Unlikely Valentine. However, I don't exit through the sewer hatch, I exit through the front door to Park Street Station. I was expecting that to talk to Nick to complete the quest, I'd have to enter the location trigger for Vault 114. However, I decide to try to see if I can talk to Nick without triggering Vault 114 by talking to Nick at a substantial distance. It takes a few tries, but I get it, and save 21 XP that I didn't think I would be able to save. The trick is to let Nick's dialogue automatically start the dialogue sequence, which enables dialogue at a greater distance than initiating conversation normally.
I'll meet you there.
See you in Diamond City.
After talking to Nick, I make my way to Diamond City, getting the Greentech Genetics location trigger and dodging the other location triggers along the way. In Diamond City proper, there are 2 location triggers to avoid, Diamond City and Diamond City Market. The Diamond City trigger can be avoided by entering via the Mayor's Elevator instead of the main gate. The Diamond City Market trigger is roughly between Choice Chops and the Super Salon, but I overestimate the size of the trigger and thus take a really long path to Nick's agency. The conversation with Nick in his agency and in front of Kellogg's house take place as normal. I run all the way around to talk to Geneva and bribe her for Kellogg's house key before running back and entering Kellogg's house, looting it and completing the Getting a Clue quest for another 206 XP. This brings me to level 4, so I take Sneak 1 for better sneaking. The next step in the main quest line is to follow Dogmeat to Fort Hagen. However, I know where Fort Hagen is, and if I go there my own way, it is much easier. But my next destination isn't Fort Hagen, it is Egret Tours Marina. I go there, talk to Phyllis to get the settlement, move the mattress to the pier, and loot the place. Thus far, I have 3 settlements, but they are all not populated, and Phyllis doesn't count. Next, I make my way over, past Diamond City, to Oberland Station. I shoot 1 settler, but because the settlement quest is kidnapping at Oberland Station, the other settler is currently at another location. Not to worry, she'll return eventually. Also, settlers do not give XP when killed, so I'm okay on that front. I run over to Fort Hagen, activate the location trigger, have a full rest, then return to Oberland Station. I don't have the well rested perk though, due to the insomnia effect. I shoot the other settler, take Oberland Station, and that's all 4 settlements I need to obtain to get the Taking Independence quest later on, but I still need to populate them. Before entering Fort Hagen, I run all the way back to Goodneighbor, send MacCready to Oberland Station, and return there myself, before picking up MacCready, ready to enter Fort Hagen.
Time to hit the road.
About time.
Fort Hagen operates much the same way as rescuing Nick Valentine did. I pretty much just keep behind MacCready as he takes out the sins ahead of me. This time, I do manage to pull off the trick where I dismiss MacCready a few times and save some ammo and stimpaks as a result. On top of this, I also find a biometric scanner and a military grade circuit board, which I will need later to build the teleporter into the Institute. Kellogg himself is a little more interesting. I use the dismissal trick here, which helps a lot as Kellogg has a lot of health, and has a couple stimpaks that he uses over the course of the fight. One interesting thing is that Kellogg actually doesn't move at all when he's not fighting anyone, and at one point I catch him and MacCready just looking at each other. Also, I started this fight by shooting Kellogg once. This skips the dialogue and doesn't do enough damage to have the game give me XP. Overall, the fight takes a bit over 10 minutes, but Kellogg does turn to dust and I grab his brain piece out of that dust. Very important. I read the terminal, see the Pridwin, and make my way back to Diamond City to turn in the Reunion's quest. On the way to Nick's agency, I use my second and last day tripper in Excel to buy the Spray and Pray and the Protector's left arm. The Spray and Pray is for Preston a bit later, and the arm piece gives me even more defense against humans. In addition, I double check the limits of the trigger for the Diamond City Market, and find that it is smaller than I expected, between choice shops and the super salon, and not extending throughout the entire market. I can even enter Piper's house safely, which is important for later. Then, I talk to Nick and Piper to conclude the reunions quest and begin the Dangerous Minds quest.
I'm gonna need a really sharp ice cream scoop.
This also unlocks Piper as a companion, but the dialogue to dismiss her is locked behind the Story of the Century quest. I have a way around that, but that's coming later. In addition, I get 257 XP, which brings me to level 5, where I get the solar powered perk. I want both that and Action Boy before I cross the glowing sea, as both improve my sprinting ability. Then, I run through Kellogg's Brain, get 309 XP from completing Dangerous Minds, send Nick to Red Rocket, then return all the way to Preston to complete his quest and get the power armor I left behind. After a long trek from Goodneighbor to Concord, I meet back up with Nick, then enter the Museum of Freedom via the roof. Nick deals with the raiders, then I dismiss him before talking to Preston. After talking to Preston, the scene begins where a ton of raiders attack the Museum of Freedom and a Deathclaw spawns for added chaos. I stay on the roof of the museum to make sure the guy on the other roof dies, then awaken the Deathclaw to deal with the raiders. It is here that something unpredictable and annoying happens. Some random raider gives me 10 XP. I have not dealt any damage to this raider, and while it looks like the raider in question was killed by Nick, I'm not 100% certain that it was that particular guy. Even if Nick did kill that raider, I should not get the XP regardless of whether Nick was my companion at the time or not. If I had waited in the museum to warp Nick back to Red Rocket, I still think that the particular raider would give me XP if killed by Preston or the Deathclaw. My best guess for what is going on here is that every NPC has some piece of data called a flag that determines if I have done enough damage to get the XP on death. Each NPC spawns with this flag set to false, such that an NPC that gets killed to a random Deathclaw does not get me XP, and if I do enough damage, that flag gets set to true, such that if I do 90% damage to an enemy that later succumbs to a random Deathclaw, I get the XP in that case. Here, I think that one of the raiders spawned with that flag set to true, such that the raider gives XP on death no matter what. I observed it happening to another raider in the Museum of Freedom, so I retried that area, and then it didn't happen the second time, suggesting that the flag on that raider was uninitialized, and thus took on the value previously stored at that memory address. For this run, I have decided to allow that 10 XP to stand, as I'm not sure on how to avoid it, or if it is possible to avoid it at all. I suspect most players don't notice, because it happens in an action-packed scene where the average player is using the minigun on a ton of the raiders. When the last enemy left is the Deathclaw, I lure the Deathclaw over to Red Rocket, give Nick the spray and pray, and Nick quickly deals with the Deathclaw very easily. I talk to Preston, get healed by Doc Anderson, return to Sanctuary, and conclude the quest When Freedom Calls, getting me 309 XP. I also feel unsure about whether or not Nick counts as a settler in Red Rocket, so I send Sturgis there too. He physically stays in Sanctuary due to the Sanctuary quest, but he is technically in Red Rocket. Maybe his ghost will count as a settler. The next quest in the Minutemen questline is the first step, but before I finish it, I need to have Piper in a settlement. So, I return to the power armor in Concord, walk it to Diamond City, repair it, which gives no XP, and get Piper. I cannot dismiss her normally, as that dialogue is locked behind the Story of the Century quest. I cannot drain her health and abandon her, as she'll just go back to her home in Diamond City, not a settlement. But there is a way. Murder. And Piper has to be the one to do it. The idea is simple. I need to aggro a Diamond City resident, deal most of the damage, and since Piper is my companion, she'll shoot the resident that's aggro to me. When she does, she will hate it to the point where she will leave, and that does bring up the UI to send her to a settlement. So I send her to Egret Tors Marina, as that is the last truly unpopulated one, before making my escape with the help of Jet and absolutely legging it. Later, after some additional testing, I found that I can just swap Piper with another companion to move her to a settlement. Oh well, you live and you learn. Anyway, I make my way to Egret Tors to see if it worked, and she has in fact appeared. Success! So, I had gone to Igritor's Marina, half because I happened to run that way while fleeing Diamond City, and half to verify that Piper made it. But, while the glowing sea is right there, I want to complete Taking Independence first, as that starts a 72 in-game hour timer until the quest Old Guns is available, and during that time, my settlements will be getting more and more unhappy, and I don't want to lose any settlements from lack of happiness. As such, I walk to Oberland Station and leave my power armor there, and run all the way to Ten Pines Bluff. To complete the first step, I have to go to Ten Pines Bluff, talk to the settlers, go to whichever place they want me to clear out, and remove the designated leader from the realm of the living. All in all, this will be 21 XP from discovering Ten Pines Bluff, 21 XP from finding whichever location I have to clear, and 309 XP from actually completing the quest. But, who says I have to successfully complete that quest? Not Preston. Instead, I whack the settlers and return to Preston to tell him the news. I still have the 21 XP from discovering Ten Pines Bluff, but that will just be one of 8 settlements I need to beat the game, so I'm not losing out. Before I talk to Preston, I save. The number of inhabited settlements I have right now determines if I get Taking Independence at the end of the next quest. This part of the Minutemen questline works as such. You rescue Preston, you complete or fail the first step, then Preston will always give at least one Radiant quest before giving the Taking Independence quest. There are a few different Radiant quests that are possible, but the one I need is Taking Point, just because it gives the least XP. I get Taking Point Starlight Drive-In, which is doubly good as the mole rats there are easy to deal with. I discover the settlement location, then deal with the mole rats first by leading them towards a nearby group of bloatflies. Then I get one by activating the door trap, I watch one blow itself up on the Bottlecat mine, and I lead the last one to a nearby group of Brotherhood soldiers. With the area cleared, I now have to build a radio beacon and generator. But the door to the workbench shed is locked. Good thing the key is on top of the screen. I build the generator and radio beacon for 13 XP and 26 XP respectively, then run back to Preston. And the next quest is... Taking Independence. Yes! On the way back to the castle, I move my power armor from Oberland Station to Diamond City. At the castle, after discovering it of course, I get on top of the small roof that's on top of the workbench. On here, I'm safe from everything except the Queen, so I just stand here and let Preston and Mr. Radio deal with the crabs. Once the Queen has spawned in, I put the Sprain Prey into Mr. Radio's desk, and he picks it up and melts the Queen over the next 7 minutes or so, which for this fight is actually decently quick. The Milo Queen herself has 5 Queen meat and 2 heavy arm pieces. The Queen meat is useful as it gives +1 endurance for a while, and I give both arm pieces to Preston and Mr. Radio. Also, I give the Sprain Prey to Preston as I want him to have it for the end of the game. Before Taking Independence is done, I have to power up the radio for Mr. Radio. This requires 10 power, and I have determined that the optimal way of doing this is building 2 medium generators for 46 XP total. The quest gets completed for 361 XP, where I get Sneak 2 for Green Tech Genetics down the line. I mentioned this earlier, but there's a 72-hour timer until Old Guns, and I want to use this time doing other quests, so I leave the castle and head straight to Spectral Island. This is the last settlement I need, but I still have to populate it. Getting Spectral Island is as easy as turning on the boat motor, then turning on the speakers to pacify the Mirelurks. However, note that the boat motor counts as providing 20 power. Keep that in mind. From here, I go all the way back to Igritor's Marina, picking up my power armor on the way. Piper has calmed down too, which is nice. The next step in the main questline is to cross the glowing sea, but remember I'm in survival mode and can't just fast travel back out. This run is simple, especially with power armor. From Igritor's Marina, there are basically 3 locations I need to avoid when running to Virgil's Cave: the Robotics Pioneer Park, the edge of the glowing sea, and the Crater of Atom, and these are very easy to avoid. The Robotics Pioneer Park requires only a slight detour, and the latter 2 are very easy to avoid as I could just take a very wide berth around them. With a buff out, bourbon, and raw Mirelurk Queen meat, I run all the way to Virgil's Cave. When I get there, I discover the cave location for 21 XP and talk to Virgil, taking care not to accidentally disarm the can chimes, as those are normally an excellent source of steel. After getting 361 XP from completing the Glowing Sea quest, I run back to Egretors Marina. Simple. I did look into the possibility of circumventing the Virgil's Cave location trigger, but leaving the cave spawns me inside it, so it is unavoidable after all. After making it back to Egretors Marina, I leave my power armor for later, get healed in Diamond City, and return to MacCready as he's the most equipped for combat. I swap clothes so that he's better defended and go to Greentech Genetics. This area is simple in execution, but oh boy does it take a long time. Unlike Park Street Station and Fort Hagen, this location is completely 100% devoid of beds, so I cannot save inside. The nearest bed is a mattress to the east of the CRT ruins, but thankfully outside of that location trigger. As such, Greentech is completed like Apollo 11, in multiple stages. First the Mirelurks outside, then the 3 first gunners and 4 turrets, then the gunners up until the skywalk, then the gunners in the second area where the missile guy is, then the next 5 gunners up and including the gunner private in front of the elevator. I run past the last 2 guys and enter the second cell of Greentech Genetics, where the Corsair is found. At first, all I do is walk wide around the Corsair. Getting too close initiates conversation, and leaving the conversation aggroes the Corsair. All I'm doing here is activating the elevator back down to the ground so that I can save one last time and have an easier time attempting the Corsair fights. Now for the Corsair himself. I use the terminal to deactivate the elevator and dismiss MacCready, then aggro the Corsair by running past him. MacCready then fights and deactivates the Corsair, while not my companion. I thought this was necessary to avoid the companion bonus on the XP from Hunter Hunted, but that comes when I pick up the Corsair chip, not when the Corsair falls down. Still, I at least saved some ammo and stimpaks. I get the Corsair chip and complete Hunter Hunted, which gets me 361 XP, bringing me to level 8. I increase my charisma to take local leader in the next level. I've lost MacCready though, which is a bummer. After picking up MacCready from Oberland Station again, I make my way to the Old North Church, having discovered it a long while back. MacCready deals with the ghouls, and I enter the password, which is password 1. Very secure. The chip gets decoded, I dismiss MacCready and get my stuff back from him, and I make my way all the way back to Egretors Marina before crossing the Glowing Sea for a second time. Is what I would say if after crossing the entire Glowing Sea, there and back, a random Brotherhood person did not give me 16 XP for absolutely no reason. Instead, I'll say this. Hello, Virgil. I succeeded on the second try, but that was a more stressful attempt. After making it back to Egretors Marina, I drop off my power armor in front of Diamond City and make my way to the northwest corner of the map. The settlements in this region have been getting worryingly low in happiness, and so I head up there to give Red Rocket and Sanctuary Hills some food and water out of my inventory. If a settlement reaches 0 happiness, I lose the settlement and it becomes occupied by a hostile faction like the Gunners. I'm not sure if I also lose the location trigger, like what happens in the Nuka World DLC. I send Nick, Codsworth and Dogmeat to the castle, then visit Starlight Drive-In. There are 3 settlers here. I send 1 to Ten Pines, 1 to Spectacle Island, and 1 to the castle. Then, I go to the castle myself. It turns out that in the process of crossing the Glowing Sea twice, climbing Greentech Genetics, and visiting the railroad, 3 days have passed. When I return to the castle, Ronnie Shaw is there, and I can start old guns without waiting any longer. I start by entering the castle tunnels, and pick up the landmines on the floor before the turret. Then, I talk to Ronnie a bit more, have her go into the tunnels with me, where she blows up the turret, and I pick up the rest of the landmines in here. The boss of this area is an old sentry bot called Sarge. I can't fight Sarge, or I get the XP. Ronnie could fight Sarge, but it would take too long. Instead, I bring Preston in, dismiss him in the area right before the chamber Sarge is in, and wake up Sarge. Preston blows up Sarge over 5 minutes. I pick up General McGann's uniform, get healed by the medic, and then build an artillery piece for 26 XP. No way around that one. The artillery piece gets tested. I give Ronnie their general's uniform and get 309 XP from finishing old guns. I've already talked to Preston about the Institute, so the next step is Sturges, all the way back in Sanctuary. My goal before the point of building the Signal Interceptor was having all 8 settlements ready and populated. I've already done this, so it's time to go straight to Sturges, or as straight as I can go without discovering anything. I talk to Sturges, and now I have to build the reflector platform. The settlement where I build this is a settlement where I build the whole Signal Interceptor. Do I build it here, in Sanctuary, so I don't have to go far? Do I build it at the castle, where I have 2 medium generators already? Nope. How about Spectacle Island, on the other side of the map? Remember the boat that provides 20 power? I'm going to use it. I've done the math. If the boat didn't exist, the optimal way to provide the 27 power needed for the Signal Interceptor is to build 9 small generators, which provides a total of 117 XP. If I build this at the castle, yeah, I can have 10 power repurposed for the radio, but that is still 71 XP more XP than needed to power the radio alone. However, if I build this at Spectacle Island, using the boat generator to provide part of the power, I will get less than 71 XP. Here, I have 2 choices. I can leave 5 power to keep the siren active, which requires I build more power generation, but saves 19 XP from building the Signal Interceptor at the castle. Or, I can disconnect the siren entirely and build fewer generators, saving me an additional 16 XP. However, I don't know how quickly this will spawn Mirelurks, or if it will cause the game to softlock, as Sturges fights the Mirelurks instead of doing his dialogue. One thing that helps me though, is that while Spectacle Island doesn't start with beds, it has a sleeping bag that can be turned into a usable bed just by moving it. I build the reflector platform for 26 XP, run all the way back to Sturges, talk to him, then run all the way back to Spectacle Island, where I build the emitter, console, and dish for an additional 64 XP. Before powering it up, I save, then attempt the teleportation sequence with the siren disconnected, which requires building a medium and small generator for 36 XP total. It goes shockingly well. I didn't see a single Mirelurk during the teleportation process.
I'm ready when you are. Fine. Uh-oh. Yeah, we better hurry. And... got it. Hold on to your butt.
Now that I have entered the Institute, I get 412 XP from completing the molecular level. The next quest is institutionalized, and it completes even if I shoot farther and walk away. Still, I don't want to end institutionalized on good terms with the Institute, as I need the Institute to be angry with me to complete the Minutemen ending. And completing this quest on good terms with the Institute, then making them angry, will start a quest called Banished from the Institute, that automatically completes when entering the Institute again during the nuclear option. I talk to Sean and do not immediately make him angry. Instead, I side with him at first. Why? Once I've looted everything valuable out of the Institute, it is time to leave. But first, I have to make Sean mad. After Sean becomes dust, I leave the Institute the way I came in. This teleports me to the surface and completes Institutionalized for another 412 XP. I took Local Leader for the previous level up once I entered the Institute, to build supply lines to help keep settlement happiness up. For this level, there is no perk that stands out as definitely the right choice. I'll just wait until later. Also, I avoid the CIT Ruins location trigger by entering the CIT building, leaving at the roof exit and jumping down via the awning to the mattress I slept in while going through GreenTech Genetics. After that, I return to Sturgis, give him the network scanner, and get 309 XP from Inside Job. While I do this, I set up a supply line between 10 Pines Bluff and Egret Tours Marina, but there aren't any more spare settlers close by to set up more supply lines. With that done, I return to the castle, buying stuff at Diamond City on the way. I can see that Ronnie is following me, which means that Defend the Castle is ready to start. Before the battle starts, I move a ton of objects into one of the side rooms of the castle. I'm not really strong enough to survive this while just standing there, so I need a place where I can hide and not be attacked. The big cabinets and workbenches will block line of sight, and all the tables will block movement towards me. However, as I set up the 3 laser turrets with the existing generators, I accidentally start the battle. Oops. I quickly run into the hiding area and save. Now I could just stay here and wait this whole thing out. I can't take part in the fight after all. But I am making this into a video, so I want to see at least some of the fight. I put both guns I brought into the workbench in the hopes that people on my side pick them up in the battle, but I do later see that one of the coursers is using the auto 10mm I brought. Bummer. The laser turrets quickly get destroyed, but the Minutemen and companions here cannot be killed, so they will finish the fight no matter what. Some way in, a synth patroller teleports into my hiding area, so I move some objects out of the way and let its programming bring it into the fight and out of my hiding spot. Unfortunately, Preston was the main guy here with his spray and pray, but at some point he gets stuck in the Castle Armory and stops fighting in the battle. I assign him to the artillery piece, which brings him out to participate in the battle again. With one last courser, the castle battle is done. I talk to Preston, completing the Form Ranks quest for 361 XP, and give him my armor so that he has more defense during the nuclear option. Shortly after, Defend the Castle completes 2 for 309 XP. This brings me to level 11, and there is one last piece of XP between here and the final cutscene. In addition, I now have 2 available perk points, but I haven't decided yet what they will be. Before I leave, I pick up the General's uniform from Ronnie, as it has very good energy defense. The nuclear option has begun, which first requires I travel all the way back to Sanctuary one last time to talk to Sturgis and get the password to the Institute's secret entrance. Before I enter, I pick up MacCready from Oberland Station, swap clothes with him, spend the last of my money on ammo for him, and repair my power armor at the power armor repair station next to Hallucinogen. With the protection of a full set of power armor, I enter the Institute's secret entrance. The first encounter is 2 turrets, and these turrets are no joke. The Institute's turrets in general melt through armor like a hot knife through butter. MacCready deals with the turrets, a mole rat, a bunch of ghouls, another couple turrets, and 2 synths. Unfortunately, while fighting the last 2 synths of this area, MacCready just stops doing anything. I have no choice but to leave him. In the teleporter room, I use the Institute Relay Targeting Sequence holotape and teleport Preston and the rest of the Minutemen in. After a quick chat, it is now up to Preston to handle most of the combat. The old robotics area goes by easily, along with the bioscience room. Before entering the main part of the Institute though, I use the one psycho buff I bought a while back, plus a stealth boy. The first enemy there is a Courser, and I don't want to get damaged by him. Preston deals with everyone in here, I use Sean's computer, Preston deals with everyone who spawns in, and I drop a save in the Institute's medical bed. From here, the game is a breeze, with Preston's spray and pray dealing with every enemy, and I place the Fusion Pulse charge shortly after. I let Mini Sean come with us and teleport to the Mass Fusion roof, which activates the final piece of XP in the whole run, moments before the end. The Mass Fusion Executive Suite. I made sure not to move when teleporting in, which shows that I teleported into the location trigger and thus could not avoid it. I push the button and the game ends. The final XP of the run was later checked by changing the difficulty and doing a console command to show my total XP gained. The exact XP I had here was 5,540.37, which is equivalent to level 11 plus 165.37 XP. But After the end of the game, I got 1,545 XP from completing the nuclear option, twice. This brings my level to level 14 plus 180.37 XP. The first thing to do is to go back and see if this lines up with all of the events that I've accounted for. Considering the fact that experience in Fallout 4 is a float, not an integer, the permanent 3% bonus because my intelligence can never be lower than 1, and the routing of XP gained in the graphic, the XP I have matches up with the XP I have calculated exactly. This means I got no additional XP that wasn't accounted for earlier. The second thing to consider is how this could be improved, if it can be improved at all. The answer is maybe. The random 10 XP that I got during When Freedom Calls can maybe be avoided simply by retrying that whole section over and over. If the XP from the Taking Point Radiant quest can be avoided by doing a different quest and failing it, you could save 103 XP from not completing the quest, plus an additional 13 XP from building the radio beacon at Spectral Island, which is one less generator needed. Unfortunately, I don't think this strategy works, as I'm reasonably sure that I've tried failing Radiant quests to start taking independence before. The other quests, I'm reasonably sure can't be skipped without glitches. This leaves the possibility of skipping locations. Every location in the main quest, from Boston Common to the Mass Fusion Executive Suite, definitely can't be skipped, as you must enter them in order to enter or leave the relevant areas. This is the case with Concord, and due to the Old Guns quest, the castle as well. Spectral Island also must be discovered because of how deep the Siren Switch is into the location trigger, and due to the boat generator, Spectral Island is necessary for the route. This leaves 6 settlements that potentially could be obtained technically, but never discovered. In theory, some settlements can be obtained this way, but I have not tested what effects this would have on the requirements of taking independence and form ranks. If the Radiant quest can be skipped, and the unintended 10 XP gain can be avoided, only 2 settlements need to be skipped to be able to beat the game at level 10. If the Radiant quest can't be skipped, then beating the game at level 10 is not possible, as you would have to bypass 8 settlement locations, and only up to 6 are theoretically possible. So this concludes Fallout 4, the min XP run. One video idea I have is to consider what the lowest level possible is for completing Fallout 4's story DLCs. There are 2 ideas I have for this. Either I can do one run of all 4 DLCs, Far Harbor, Vault-Tec, Nuka World and Automatron, or I can do Far Harbor and Nuka World as 2 separate videos, which would entail completing Nuka World specifically at a lower level than I would in an all 4 DLC run. If I decide to do either idea, it will be out in December at the earliest, pending a decision on the Stardew Valley All Fish in 1.6 video. Let me know in the comments what you think of either video idea, and if you want to see what video I make next month, subscribe to find out.